right. So Shirley, Gnanadhas? Gnanadhas? Is that
Close.
right?
I'll go with that.
No, no. How do you say it?
It's Shirley Gnanadhas.
Yeah. Okay. Gnanadhas. Okay.
Got
All
it.
right.
That's it.
Okay. So she is an experienced strategy and operational excellence professional with specialized focused in data, currently working with AstraZeneca in India. She started her career as a project engineer focused on data and data transformations with a keen interest in data analytics. And she's built and executed multiple analytical solutions, enabling the C-suite to draw better intelligence, make faster decisions, and steer the organization towards the right path. So without further delay, Shirley, you can begin.
All right. Hi everyone. Very happy to be here. And I, when I first saw Amy's note on LinkedIn, I was really intrigued because I thought it would be really good to meet more people and bring a little bit of awareness about certain niche areas of analytics that's quite often less spoken about. So Madeline's question from the earlier talk with Andy, it was kind of a nice segue into my topic actually. So the topic that I had chosen for today is self-service analytics. So I thought that okay, before that, from my experience, I started out as a management consultant with AstraZeneca, and I've been here for the last 5 years. So I come from a technical background, but I never had very solid technical experience as such. I dabbled a little bit of data and databases in the past, but nothing beyond that. Um, I think when I joined my company, I found that there was a huge potential for uh, using the data that they had because there is a lot of power to data than what you generally see. So I really wanted to make use of that, and that's how I kind of landed up in the world of self-service analytics because here was I who did not have a lot of technical prowess, but wanted to, draw insights, see patterns, and build measurements and all that. So that's how I got caught in the world of self-service analytics. And I thought it'd be really good to share what I've learned, and I can also share what opportunities it holds for us from a career standpoint today and in the future. So, without further ado, I'll go into the agenda. So, this is the agenda that I've got for today. So, Amy has already introduced me, so I think I'll just skip that part. I'd like to start with a little bit of what's happening in today's world from in the world of analytics. And then I'd like to talk to you a bit about what exactly is self-service analytics and I know I'm mentioned dropping that word a lot. So what exactly is it? Why? What can it do? What can it not do? And I'll also give you an example use case and a little bit more about we'll delve a little deeper into self-service analytics in terms of what are the typical characteristics of self-service analytics, what tools and capabilities fall into this category, what is it like today, and what is it hold for us in the future. And the last part, I thought I'll just have an open discussion in terms of how can we leverage the opportunities from a career standpoint of view. So um, so before I go into this, has anyone uh, had any experience with self-service analytical tools, or have you heard of the term before?
I've heard of the tool before. I've heard of it.
Okay.
Hmm.
So before we jump into self-service analytics or SSA, like I might abbreviate it down to sometimes. Here's a bit of stats on the industry of analytics. So we all know how COVID-19 took the whole world by surprise, and businesses had to gear up, organizations had to still continue to deliver in a completely different scenario where they had to spend more times with tools and technology and lesser time with people in person. And things have really changed for all of us, and most importantly for the C-suite of the organizations and other leadership folks. It has really impacted them in a way that they really need to draw decisions faster than ever before. It was very interesting to know that a lot of organizations just in the last 1 year. So I think it's safe to say that we've completed 1 year of the global pandemic now. um, so in this last 1 year alone, there's been a lot of investment, significant investments going on in the industry of analytics, and there's been a lot of growth, significant growth, not very small scale, minuscule growth assets, significant growths and investments in the analytics industry. And what's more um, important is that Gartner has says that the industry will grow to a $274 billion industry by 2022. Um, there is also the aspect of piloting AI. So a lot of organizations, including my very own, we do a lot of proof of concepts with a lot of the new AI tech that's coming out. But most importantly, piloting is one thing, but putting them into production, operationalizing them is a whole different game. And it it has been predicted that by 2024 there will be 75% of organizations that would be moving into a place where they would put things into production and keep running them, which is actually a very significant thing. And I believe there's a lot of opportunities in the world of AI that you might see coming up in the next 4 to 5 years. Um, 50% of the new business systems will be using continuous intelligence by 2022. So, continuous intelligence is an extension of your let's just say what we do today from an analytics point of view. So when I say when we do, it's probably there are a lot of organizations that have fully blown analytical systems that can give you what you want when you ask. But there is also a huge number of organizations that are getting onto that journey of industry 4.0 and trying to embrace the digital journey and bringing in analytics, trying to exploit their own data. So, what continuous intelligence means is that you will be able to deploy your real time insights into your operations on a live basis. So, for example, you might be in a situation where you know that your sales is going to increase next month due to a certain policy change or due to some circumstance, and therefore you need to increase your production a bit. So your continuous intelligence systems can tell you that how much percentage should you increase production, and what days are can you expect a huge volume in sales, and when they have to be shipped to which locations and all of that. in on a live basis. You don't have to go and ask, really, it will tell you. And then you have data stories. So data stories is something that has been picking up already with most organizations today. But this trend talks more about how augmented analytics would play a key role in data stories. So augmented analytics is, again, it's a combination of multiple different analytical tools and systems. And the last one is about governance, which is one of my favorite topics when it comes to data and analytics and organizations. So as I said earlier, a lot of organizations are still catching up on the game of, the digital journey, the game of leveraging their own data and exploiting the power of their own data to draw intelligence and compete against the market. What most organizations forget to do is the groundwork. So I'll talk a little bit more in the upcoming slides, but just to give you a little bit of perspective, um, you can't really have a system like for example, you cannot have a good continuous intelligence system set up without proper data landscape, meaning without good databases, without APIs, without a data catalog, without metadata. It's only when you have all of these playing along together with a governance model that defines principles such as who gets access to what data, who gets access to what systems should be allowed to be open to anyone in the organization for people to consume data. That is when you will be able to deploy good AI and analytical systems in place. So this is just to give you a sense of what is happening and what we can expect. But now we'll jump into self-service analytics, the topic of the hour. So self-service analytics is so what I've dropped here is the Gartner definition. You can probably have a quick read as I break it down into simpler terms for you. So self-service analytics is not very different from business intelligence. It is simply the act of drawing insights and patterns and forecasting, predicting from your data. Now, how this is different from your traditional business intelligence is that this will enable any non-technical user, meaning let's think of a business user, to run their own queries, pull data, manipulate the data, and then they can design their own visuals and generate reports. It need not be visuals even in particular, it can be any sort of insight for that matter. But primarily, most self-service analytics tools are characterized by visual reports. So it just translates to a bunch of graphs and some heat maps and curves and so on. So that is the fundamental difference where, so if you looked into a traditional business intelligence system, you would always have this team of IT engineers. Uh, so there would be a couple of people who would actually do work on the report or the dashboard, and you will have a couple of people building who are building the database, who are maintaining the tables and all that. There'll be another couple of people who would ensure that um, the feed between the database and the dashboard is live and it's running. So and you will have testers, of course, because you have three different elements talking to each other. And you might also have an ETL expert who will ensure that, any data that you pull from the source system is transformed and shaped um, into a usable way, so that the dashboard developer can, shape the data as and how he needs. So uh, that is a lot of people, and sometimes it can be a very simple straightforward dashboard. But in the case of a traditional in the case of an organization where traditional business intelligence systems are set up, you wouldn't have a choice but to go to those guys to ask them to build it for you. And that usually runs as a project for like 3 months, 4 months generally. And so think about the time and the resources that you're investing into the development of a single report. Gone are those days. What self service analytics can enable is for the business user to pull the data from the data source system and build and generate his own reports, and create his own insights, and it enables him or her to slice and dice the data how uh, to the interest of his needs. Now this So the statement I just made is under the assumption that the all things are democratized and everything is available to everyone. But you will encounter certain organizations where things are set up differently, and I will go over that in one of the coming slides. Okay, so what is self-service analytics really help you with? So it helps a business and a user understand what is happening with this business. He doesn't have to, go to multiple people and wait for a long time to really understand what is going to happen to him. He can just do it in a day or a couple of days' time. One can derive reasons as to why something is happening with their business, and most importantly, it's going to speed up the time taken for uh, delivering your report. And it's super easy, doesn't require a lot of technical skills. So you can draw you can draw insights um, in a very medium scale, sometimes even low scale of effort. It also eliminates the conundrum of analysis paralysis. So generally, when sometimes business users, they do not really know what they want to see from their data. They might have one or two problem questions, but there's probably more to it than what they've just stated. So for the IT guys, what happens is there's usually this gap because they are not close to the business. They may not see the business the same way a person in the business would. So how um, so when they build something, it may not answer all the questions of the um, business user even. Like it could be a totally different question they're answering to. And there are cases where people say, "Oh, I've answered the two questions that my business user asked." But there's also a ton of other things that you can do with this data. So I'm going to do all of that and put that on the report and send it back to him. That is a lot of analysis happening there, and trust me, the business user will go crazy seeing all those numbers there. And end of the day, he would kind of forget the original question that he had in mind for asking why he asked someone to build this report even. So but rather when think about what happens when the business user himself, does the whole report by himself. It's probably going to be very focused and very insight driven. He knows what he wants, so he's going to do exactly what he wants and nothing more than that. um, Collaboration. So this is what I wanted to touch upon from my earlier slide. So most often, most organizations that are on their way to digital journeys, um, they may not have a very open system where you can just go and pull the data that you need, or you may not have access to the APIs that you want. In which cases, you really need to work with a solution architect. You need to work with an ETL guy. You need to work with a database guy, or sometimes maybe just one of those, because that's the only thing you don't have access to. And that is where the aspect of collaboration comes into. Um, and then self-service analytics is also a very good mechanism to facilitate data-driven culture and data literacy. So this is very applicable to organizations that are struggling to enforce that data-driven culture in their organization. There are companies that struggle to, tell people to make decisions based on your data and not based on just what you see, because data really speaks more to what you can actually see out there. Um, and most importantly, self-service analytics empowers people to be their own analysts. So I don't have to um, go to an IT engineer or anyone else to, help me understand my data. As long as I have access to a self-service analytics tool, and I have some basic understanding of some stats and some logic, I can always build my own report. I don't need to work with a bunch of people to, help me understand what is happening with my business. So here's an example use case. So let's just assume that you lead a team of service engineers and consultants who are um, helping a client with fixing their incidents and outages and so on. So your customer satisfaction indicators. So generally, when you have a client, you always have a customer satisfaction indicator that tells you how happy your client is or how not happy your client is. So your customer satisfaction indicators are really great, but what your CEO wants you to do is to work smarter and start delivering proactive um, responses rather than being reactive in an effort to save costs. So let's just, for the use case sakes, assume that this is a strategic objective that your CEO has set for you. So how do you go about it? So first things first, your strategic approach would be to understand what is consuming the most cost. Um, is it happening with a certain set of incidents or certain set of bug fixes? Is it happening with a particular um, department from your client, or is it happening just all over the place? Um, so once you understand that, you would try to think of ways as to minimize the cost. From a tactical approach, what will you do? You will try to a start breaking down your, rather first you will try to get your data for your incidents and your bugs and your workarounds that you've been doing. From that, you can identify where are your folks spending the most time. So once you find out where your folks are spending the most time, is it on certain days, on a certain incident that is repeating over and over again, or is it a bug fix that has not been attended to for a long time? Are there any outages that have been significantly affecting my resources, time, and availability? Once you get that sort of a thing, you will be able to, associate it with cost. So, which of these are the most cost consuming ones? So, it's most likely going to be outages, but you will never know. There could be cases where, there's one tiny incident that repeats every 6 hours, which requires your guys to work on that for like 2 hours. That puts you at um, uh, with 7 into 2 into 30. So, whereas for your major outages, you might probably be spending like 3 hours a month. So, in which case, you will actually have to, pay attention to why is that particular incident repeating. So, um, and then you will be able to minimize your cost from that direction. There's probably other approaches that you can take as well, but the fundamental takeaway from here is that you need to be able to, you as a manager of service engineers should be able to understand and analyze your data to see um, how you achieve a certain strategic objective that has been set before you. So um, okay, just one. Okay. So here are three characteristics of self-service analytics. So when we say self-service analytics, it's not one tool. It is not one technology. It's rather a set of tools. Although, you might have heard certain tools being promoted or advertised as self-service analytics tools. From an organization standpoint, it always comes down to a platform, which is a set of tools and capabilities. So fundamentally, any self-service analytics platform should have these three characteristics. And to be fair, it just doesn't apply to self-service analytics. Pretty much anything that you would deploy in your organization. It has to be agile, it has to be sustainable, and it has to be business driven. So when I say agility, or when I say it has to be agile, the platform should give the right people the right set of resources and tools and capabilities. You can't expect somebody who has no knowledge of what ETL is to come and work on an ETL process. It should be able to create a collaborative environment. So when you have someone who has no knowledge of ETL process, there should be the option where he can go to an ETL expert within the organization, or hire an ETL consultant who can fix the problem for him, and create a process to govern how this whole system works, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to continuously improve your analytics. From a sustainability point of view, as we all know, everything is ever changing and it just doesn't stop evolving. Um, so classic example is for me is ClickView. ClickView was it was not a self-service analytics tool. It was a BI tool, and it was on the top of it was number one on Gartner's Magic Quadrant for analytical and BI tools for 3 years. And in 2016, Microsoft's Power BI picked up, and it was always a close race between the two. And in 2 years, ClickView went down to um, the seventh or eighth position. It was not in the top five. And it was really amazing to see how, Microsoft kept their game up. And today they are number one on the Gartner's Magic Square, Magic Quadrant. So for any organization to keep up with this kind of evolution, their platform has to be sustainable. So it should be capable of removing a technology, at the same time adding a new technology whenever it's required. Um, and most importantly, it should also be able to accommodate any changes that happens within the organization. So sometimes organization policies change. That could be due to internal factors, or that could be due to external factors as well. But every time something like that happens, you should be able to, accommodate that change within your platform. Classic example is GDPR. So when GDPR came into place, a lot of organizations had to fix their policies, fix their platforms, change the way they work with certain things, changed a lot on how they were reporting on certain things. And that is a very good way to measure, probably if your organization, or if you know of any organizations that went through GDPR changes, it would be good to understand, how well and seamless was their process of accommodating those changes, because that is a very good measure of how sustainable their tools and platforms are, and how scalable they are really. The last point on this slide is uh, SSA platforms should always be business driven. Although um, it is an enabler for a non-technical user, meaning a business user, there is always there will be still companies and organizations that will ensure that this is something that only the IT guys work on, which is absolutely fine as long as it works for their work culture and their strategy in particular. It's absolutely fine. But what is more important is that that should be business driven. The aspect where they ensure that only the IT folks and not the business users are being able to use these tools, that should be business driven. Again, any sort of reporting that they're doing, that should be again business driven. One cannot simply create reports just because there's data lying around. There has to be certain business imperative for you to create a report and do some analysis. So that leads us into what kind of tools and capabilities are usually present in a self-service analytics system. So first you have the semantic layers. So semantic layers are nothing but your various data layers. Um, and then you have the open data platform. So open data platform is typically what's going to help um, your analysts and your data engineers to work on big data. And then you have security and administration to ensure that your data is secure and that it has a framework of governance around it. The fourth item is metadata management. So metadata is nothing but it's data about your data. So it tells you where your data is coming from, where your data is stored, and um, what are the what is your data type, and how old is your data, how new is your data, all of that. Data cataloging is basically how you will catalog your data and ensure that any person in the organization will be able to look up the catalog and pick the data sets that he wants or she wants. So, for example, in a large organization, you might have sales data sets, you might have supply chain data sets, you might have manufacturing related data sets, you might have IT related data sets, service management related data sets. Now somebody, and most importantly, you will have people related data sets. And against each category, you will have another 100 different types of data sets. So if you look at people, you will have recruitment data sets. And let's just say that some HR working out of Japan wants to uh, pull some recruitment data for all of Asia to see, Asia Pacific, to see how Japan's recruitment is doing against the APAC standards. Um, Typically, he or she would have to, go through a rigorous process of securing that data. But with the data catalog available, she can just go and place a request saying that she wants access to this particular data set, and probably share the time period for the data that she's looking for, and she or he will just have them emailed or have access to the database where it's located at. So that is what data cataloging can do. Data storage and loading is all about your cloud storage, the data storage and loading is about your databases, your ETL transformations, um, and all of that. AI and ML libraries needs no introduction. I'm guessing that pretty much everyone these days is relying a lot on these libraries to build their own predictive models and machine learning models. BI tools is what includes your plethora of visualization and business intelligence tools. So it can be something like your Power BI or Tableau, Spotfire, MicroStrategy, ClickView, ClickSense. Then there's Looker, another new kid on the block. So tons of BI tools available, but it's very important to pick something that works well for the organization from a skill point of view as well as from a strategy point of view. Last but not the least is your cloud compute and your storage resource. So, how are you going to store your data? How are you going to, manage your storage resources? Do you have huge volumes of data in data centers? So, how are you going to bring that into your platform and all that? So that brings us to the end of tools and capabilities. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how a lot of organizations are doing with this journey of self-service analytics. So typically we've been seeing this, like the last 2, 3 decades at least, we've been seeing this increasing volume of data everywhere, every organization. And that is what prompted someone to say, hey, we've got all of these data. Probably we need to, see what we can do with it. And um, that led to the need for, analytics. And that was what led to the understanding that, data is more powerful than what it seems. You can look into the far future from 3 decades worth of data. And that led to the demand for analytics. So there is also a second element to the demand for analytics. That is the rate at which things are changing today. So um, a trend that was, or a tool or a technology that was popular like 20 years ago is probably not around today. And there's always this constant practice of rationalization that's happening all over. which kind of pushes you to a place where you need to, make decisions faster. So, because of these two aspects, there's always this huge demand for, analytics. Everywhere you go, people are like, oh, can you work on some analytics for me? Um, and because you have this demand for analytics in pretty much every area of the organization, there is this need for democratizing data because um, everyone wants to analyze data, see how well they're doing, how bad they're doing, or what can they do in the future, what they should not do in the future. Um, so that leads to this question of data democratization, wherein anyone can have access to the data that they want. Now, this is a bit of a battle in some organizations because traditionally, if you look at how organizations are set up, um, access to data is very sacred. So not everyone would get access to data. You need to have, a certain position in the organization to, or a certain designation in your organization to have access to data. But then that has its own cons. So um, there is a lot that would go under the table, um, or rather that would remain hidden when the right people do not have access to the right set of data. So when I say the right people, these are the people that know the nitty gritties of uh, the functional aspects of the organization, the functional aspects of the business, and they would be able to relate to the numbers better. Which also leads us to the aspect of data management. So data management is the part about having metadata, data cataloging, and all that. Again, because we do not have this system of democratized data in a lot of organizations, um, there are significant challenges from a data management perspective as well. So, in terms of accomplishing this, what are organizations doing today? They are investing in analytical tools and technologies, like I said earlier. Um, but when one picks an analytical tool or a technology for that matter, it needs to be something that would help you or enable you to deliver your business values. It wouldn't make sense for you to pick a tool because you have the budget or you have the money and it fits just your use case, as opposed to the organization's broader objectives. Uh, Organizations are realizing how important it is to have a data driven culture, and therefore they are empowering users to explore data and do their own analysis and reporting instead of going down to a centralized team that will do the reporting and analysis for them. Again, this is something that is slowly picking up. A lot of organizations are, of course, way ahead of this, but there is also a huge number of organizations that's quite slow on the journey, but they're picking up. The third thing is strategic simplified data overview offered by a data catalog. So this is where you can actually go shopping for data really. Um, Probably not as fun as real shopping, but it would really help a lot of people save a lot of time when they have to hunt down for data sets. Like I've been in places where I had to hunt down for one data set for like 3 months. It's not days, 3 months. And eventually I was given it, and the problem here was not because of my position. I had all the CDAs and NDAs signed, but it was more a matter of they were not able to pull the right data set from the system. Whereas if things were simplified and categorized and kept in a catalog, I could have just gone shopping and picked it, added it to my cart, and checked out. So again, a lot of organizations are looking at data cataloging. So all of this falls a little bit into the aspect of data governance. Data governance is again a very huge area that has a lot of potential growing opportunities from a career point of view, or even from an organization point of view. A lot of organizations are adapting to institute some data governance around their system, around their organizations. Um, and these are some of the things that are uh, that organizations are investing in, and are a result of um, organizations investing more and more into the space of data and analytics. The demand for analytics across areas of business today is like huge. Like 10 years ago, nobody was very keen about like, oh, I wanted to um, build a predictive model for my workforce so that I will know who is going to leave in the next 6 months. Um, but now, like pretty much every organization wants to do that. It has become like the norm to have predictive models that will help you forecast the future and tell you what to do and what not to do. That's the extent to which organizations want to uh, go today. And organizations are also, embracing the data-driven culture, which is actually a really great sign. And that also enables business users to draw facts and insights themselves without relying on a lot of other people. There's a lot of user-friendly BI tools that are coming into place. Like Looker is a classic example. Power BI is again a very classic example. I work a lot on Power BI, and personally, I am a big proponent of Power BI. It's a very great tool in that it's something that a technically savvy person can use it, as well as a non-technical person can, embrace the tool in a matter of a few days, given, you spend a good amount of time exploring the tool. Um, so that's another thing. And lastly, you are seeing, a lot of advancements in AI, Internet of Things, and BI platforms in itself. Just using Power BI as an example again, Microsoft releases like at least 5 updates, or rather 5 new features to Power BI as a tool every month. And that is like huge because every time you open your tool, you will find something new that wasn't there before. And that would actually enable you to sharpen your insights and make your visual presentations even better than before. So, what happens in the future? So, what can you expect in the future from an analytics point of view? So there are 5 things that will significantly improve in the coming days, in the coming years rather. Um, One, there is going to be a huge demand on analytical capabilities. That's no doubt. Um, this going to be this demand for consumability. So it's not just about creating data and creating insights from data and presenting it to your C-suite. How are you going to consume it into decisions and translate it into actionable insights for your business. And then you have business modeling, wherein you tie your decision making systems into your analytical systems, which is again an example of continuous intelligence. Collaboration is something I've talked about multiple times already, so I'm going to skip that. Um, Trust. This is a very unique thing, especially when it comes for a tool. And what trust translates into here is you should be able to, draw insights from your data sources without the doubt of it can go wrong sometimes. So, how do you build models that are um, accurate, that will deliver the right numbers every time? So, it also leads us to the question of data governance. So, um, data governance is, it's a huge framework. There's multiple elements to it. So you have data security, data warehousing, you have business intelligence, you have database operations, you have documentation, architecture, solutioning, metadata, data cataloging, and even developing data. So all of this becomes a huge part of data governance. And this is something that will significantly help you to uh, make your platform seamless. So whether you have a self-service analytics platform or not, data governance is one area that every organization is seriously looking into. So if data and analytics excites you, data governance is something that you might want to look into, because it's a less it's not too technical, but it's not too functional either. It's a bit of a techno-functional area, and you might enjoy exploring some roles in data governance as well. Um, so typically, a lot of organizations that we see today are somewhere, like they might have a data governance system in place, but it may not be as strong as they think it is. And there is always room for improvement, even in the strongest data governance framework. So one can always, look at opportunities in data governance, data governance as a um, area for opportunities. So, last part, this is where I wanted to talk to you guys about careers. So, from a analytics standpoint of view, um, some of us may have great experience with statistics, with logic, with coding, and you can probably work seamlessly on something like R and Python and other machine learning languages. um, so for those of you that are very super flawless in those technologies, self-service analytical tools are something that might be an extra add-on skill, in that you will be able to, I mean, you are doing your analysis already, but how do you, present it? How do you tell your story using the numbers that you discovered, using the patterns that you discovered? That is something that you can really showcase using the power of your visual tools as part of the self-service analytics platform. The second part is for people like me who come from a slightly non-technical background, I would say. So For people like us, self-service analytics platform is really an eye-opener. It's a great skill to have it added into your skill set. And trust me, it's not at all scary as it might seem with all the jargons that I might have thrown over the last hour. It's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward. Most of them are, tools that you can download off the internet and practice. There are plenty of um, guides and training material that's available online that you can exploit as crazy as you can. um, and it is the most important thing is that you do not need a lot of technical skill into this use starting to use these tools. You can always start with something small and then you can grow from there. um, so that is from the non-technical skill point of view. For someone who is already, familiar with self-service analytics and even other sides of data analytics and AI and ML, I would really encourage you to look into data governance, because that is going to be huge in the next 5 years for a lot of organizations. Um, there is a huge need for establishing data governance in a lot of organizations. By that, I mean there are organizations that do not have a data catalog, they do not have a proper metadata management. Um, they have issues in terms of data architecture. Those are really wonderful areas to, work with. It may not be something where you would do a lot of coding as such, but it's something definitely that will help you understand, get a deeper understanding of how an organization can make the data landscape more seamless and more accessible to people. So that's the last thing that I had. But I just wanted to quickly open up for any questions that you might have for me that I can probably take up now.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. Actually, we have the next speaker at 1, so I think
Okay.
we have time for questions. Uh, does anyone have questions?
Yes, I have a question. I just wanted to know, in comparison to guided analytics, do you think businesses are better off handling the data themselves? Or what are some of the most common issues, such as like, do they misinterpret the data, or is there more room for error, or do they misunderstand it sometimes?
Okay, great question. So, from my experience, what I can answer is that um, self-service analytics is something that has always, empowered business users to do their own analysis and draw data and insights by themselves. That is one thing. That helps them to improve the kind of insights that they are bringing, because a they are closer to the data, they know their processes well. Whereas somebody from outside of the system, they may not know the processes, they may not know the nitty-gritty well. So it may be the case where uh, the perspective becomes different, right? So if I am if I'm an HR and I know my HR policies well and I know how things work in the recruitment scene, I would know why my time taken to fill a particular vacancy is always high, because I'm closer to the process. Whereas someone else might just say, oh, your turnaround times are high and it's bad. Whereas in this case, it's high because of a certain reason. Um, say, for example, it could be that the skill is scarce, and it could be a case of, a very expensive skill to procure. So I think that is one of the main reasons why, self-service analytics are very welcome in the business areas, especially um, because of the fact that the interpretation and the perspective is more clearer and more accurate.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't take into consideration that they may understand it better from within the business. So thank you so much.
I'm glad that it helped. Any other questions?
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned that in the beginning that you were not technical, so you came in without, I mean, how long did it take you to become comfortable with the
Okay.
work in terms of, yes.
So I um before joining AstraZeneca, I did my MBA. So I did have a certain exposure to statistics.
Mm,
And prior to that, I did a couple of years coding for a bank.
I
So I
see.
did have some exposure, but again, that's completely different from what you would see here. Like the kind of logical thinking that you need to build an analytical model is a lot different from what I might need to tell a system to mark a customer as, you know, um as an inactive customer. So it's a lot different. Um from a self-service analytics tool point of view, um, it took me about 3 months to familiarize and build like a decent dashboard with which is not too basic, but then it wasn't too advanced either. But I gave myself the time to learn and grow. Right? You can't really. Sometimes it's a matter of taking it as a journey. So you um, take it slow, but yeah, but continue to learn every day. So yeah, that's how it went about for me.
All right, well, I want to thank you for this talk. Are there any other questions? This was really good. Are there any questions from the audience? You can reach Shirley. Did someone have a question?
No,
No?
I think I was just going to say that if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on my email, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer questions, give you any sort of guidance from my self-service analytics tool point of view, or any sort of career guidance really, or even if you just want to chat, open to that.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Will you be at the social networking segment?
Unfortunately, no, Amy. That would be like 2 a.m. for me. So
Oh,
yeah,
I forgot. Okay.
nah,
All
that's all
right.
right. But
Yes.
no, this is really great. It was really good to, present to all of you guys. So thank you for having me here. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the sessions that Amy has planned for all of you.
Thank you. Thanks again.